All right. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for signing up for tonight's session. I am Yawa Hansen-Quao. Pleasure, honor, privilege to meet you, to welcome you to tonight's session. I pulled this together because I know we're in the seventh month of 2025. And I just felt really strongly this morning when I woke up that I needed to just invite whoever wanted to come hang with me for an hour or so. And let's walk through some reflective questions that I've been walking some of my coaching clients and my mentees through. These are reflection questions that I use on myself. And I like to do a quarterly check-in with whatever my goals were for the year and just see the progress I'm making or not on each of those items. And so since 2010, I've been organizing what I call strategy retreats, and a lot of women, mostly women actually, have traveled with me into really nice locations where we just sat for 2 nights strategizing about what we want and how we will get it. So some of this is a function of that work that I've been doing. At heart, I believe I'm a strategist. I'm really good at helping find a path from where you're at now to where you need to go. So, I'm sharing this because that's my claim to fame. That's my justification for doing this. It's that I've been doing this for a few years for myself and others. Some are clients and some are people who I'm mentoring, and they found great value in it. And I just felt that when I woke up this morning, I had a strong nudge and leading to just do this publicly. So here, that's why I'm doing this session. I don't know who needs this and why, but I believe if you signed up and if you felt led to this, it's because there's something that I will say by God's grace through tonight's session that'll be meaningful to you and that will perhaps be catalytic to making sure the rest of 2025 is better than the first half. So I've been working as an advisor, a executive coach, a strategist, a consultant, a leadership development expert. I've had the great honor of supporting organizations and individuals over the past 15 years. For those who don't know me, that's what this slide is really to help you understand who I am. But again, thank you for trusting me with your time tonight, and let's dig in. For me, I just really want us to ground ourselves in a few facts. Fact number one is that we're halfway through the year. This is July 2nd, so day two of the seventh month. And I really, really, truly believe that, for many of us, we need to just go sit for a few minutes and unpack what we've been doing, what we had ambitions to accomplish, and what remains undone. And I like to use this frame. Just this past weekend, I was hosting my Standout Women's Leadership Program, and we had about 35 women gathered together at the Safari Valley Resort. And I gave them this analogy that I want to share tonight, which is if you've ever been to an airport, if you've ever traveled, especially traveled internationally, before you get on the plane, you go through all sorts of checks, right? At the Ghana airport, those of us who fly through Accra often, even before you meet the airline staff, the first people you meet are security, right? They ask you questions. Where are you going? They check whether you actually have a visa to go where you're going. They ask how long you'll be gone. They ask questions like, do you actually have a return ticket? They want to assess your suitability for flying. Has that ever happened to you before? Let me know in the chat box if you've ever been questioned by security when you're trying to board a flight, right? And then they take you to a second counter, and that second counter is usually the airline counter, where the airline is looking for a couple of other things. So the airline is looking to see whether you have purchased a ticket, whether you actually have a reservation, whether you're actually due to travel that day. So, for example, a few weeks ago, I was doing some work for a client in Kumasi, and so I was at the airport and I was just waiting to board my flight. And when they started to announce the flight was boarding, I decided to join the line. And when I got to the line and gave them my ticket, they said, "Oh no, you're not on this flight." I said, wait, but look. And they said, yes, this is the same airline, but it's a different flight. So when you get to that second checkpoint, they're really trying to check that you're in the right place at the right time, right? Let me know in the chat box if that's happened to you or if I'm the only weird one who tries to get on a flight that's not hers, right? Each of us, when we're trying to ascend to our destination, needs to go through checkpoints. And they can be a little annoying. I was telling the women at the Standout program that when you're dealing with security officers, when it's time to fly, it can be uncomfortable. They make you put your bags through these machines. They make you walk through a machine, and then they're detecting, oh no, you've got something in your bag that's um, not suitable for travel. And then they make you open the bag, take it out, go back through the process. And then sometimes, now this is the part I really hate. The part that I hate is when you go through the machine and something goes off and they ask for a human being to come touch your body, right? Feel your hair, feel your boobs, feel your legs. Make sure that you don't have anything hidden on your body that is unsuitable for travel. I'm using that frame to ground us in today's presentation because that's what I want this checkpoint to be. We really want to ask, are we where we could be or should be? And if not, why? And quite frankly, I want to touch until it hurts. I want to find what you need to let go of, what's not suitable for travel throughout the rest of 2025, so that you can be free to actually do the thing that God's called you to do all along. You know, my goal is that in these reflective exercises, you'll have a paper and a pen, a notebook. I've got my small little journal here and a pen. I was doing some of this earlier today. After our retreat, I've been taking a little time off to slow down and to recover and rejuvenate, but also to plan my steps for the rest of the year. And I think that's why the prompting was on me this morning to just share this exercises because these exercises have been really meaningful to me. I also had a dream a few weeks ago that I wanted to share, and I think I shared it with our standout women leaders at our retreat, but I want to share it in this context as well. And in the dream, I was trying to get on an airplane, and I was in a long line of people trying to get on the plane. And when it got to my turn to get onto the plane and hand my ticket and my passport, the staff member said, "Look, I'm sorry, but this ID is expired." And that's what I want to share with some of us that we're trying to travel to the next destination, but we're traveling with old identity. And that dream I felt was a warning to myself, but also a warning to the women in my community that I serve. That if you are going to make the most out of the rest of this year, you've got to travel with the right identity. And in the dream, I had lots of passports, but they were all expired. So I saw my younger face, one passport had my maiden name, another passport had my old face and figure, old hairstyles, everything was old. And I felt that God was warning me through this dream that I need to make sure that I don't slip back into old behaviors or adopt old approaches. Because if I want to move to my next level, I've got to plug into the new. So I wanted to share these two things to ground us in the work we're doing today. That as an executive coach, as someone who undergirds leaders, I really have the great honor of working with people to get to clarity, but also provoking them. And some of this provocation I'll share tonight may be uncomfortable, but that's the thing about checkpoints. Checkpoints are usually uncomfortable, and they are usually just so inconvenient. I don't know about you, but I remember being in an airport in Tamale. For those of you who aren't from Ghana, Tamale is up north, and there's just so much hassle I did not expect to go through because I was up north in the airport there. And I went through the checkpoint. They put my bag through the machine. They said, "Madam, open your bag. They took out the water bottle that I had, and I said, "Oh, I just hadn't finished drinking my water." They said, "No." And I said, "Here too? Even here, I have to go through the hassle." So checkpoints aren't usually convenient. They're never comfortable, but to get to our next level, we've got to subject ourselves to it. And that's the frame and the spirit in which I want to walk us through tonight's presentation. And if you've got any questions or comments along the way, do not hesitate to put them in the chat box so that at the end of the presentation, I can answer. All right. So with that, let's start our first reflection. We want to understand where we are now. You know, they say if you want to know where you're going, you got to first figure out where you are now. If you want directions to where you're going, the first question is, where are you now? What do you see around you? Earlier today, I had this dressmaker who was sending me some clothes that she had worked on for me, and she was sending it with a courier. And I sent my GPS location and all of that to her to provide to the courier. And then I get a call from the courier saying, asking me for the same information. And I said, "Well, I sent the GPS location. Can you just follow the map?" And he says, "Oh, can you just give me a sense of where you are?" And I said, "Well, if you plug in where you are in relation to my destination, the map will show you where to go." Similarly, if we want to know the way to where we're going, it really is necessary for us to be clear about where we are. So I'd love for you to take a moment, take your notebook, take your pen, and just answer these questions really quickly on a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate your fulfillment and progress this year? You've done 6 months out of this year already. Are you 50% there? Are you 60? Is it 20? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate 1 being low and 10 being the highest? How would you rate your fulfillment and progress this year? Reflection number 2. What has gone really well? In your estimation, what has gone really, really well this year? Question 3, we're asking, what have you avoided? What have you been avoiding this year? And lastly, what are you no longer available for? I want to give you a moment to just reflect and write down for you your situation at the moment. Question 1, scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your fulfillment and progress this year? What has gone really well? What have you avoided? And what are you no longer available for? Question 1 is general, the general overview of like everything mashed up together. How would you rate the first 6 months of this year? Question 2 is for you to isolate. What really are you proud of in this 6 month period? What have you done that's made you proud? Question 3, what have you been avoiding that perhaps you shouldn't? And question 4, what are you no longer available for? What boundary are you setting? So I shared with my Elevate community, I've got a coaching and mentoring circle that I did these exercises with a few, probably 2 weeks ago. And I shared with them that for me, this was early June, I was 6 out of 10. I felt that I'd made a lot of good progress, but I wasn't as far along as I liked. I said what had gone really well is my clarity of purpose on how I'm serving. I've made a lot of shifts in the past year, shifts physically with health and wellness, shifts with what I work on, who I work with, lots of shifts that have resulted in me liking the way I work, the way I show up. I'm choosing my clients thoughtfully. The programs that I'm doing and hosting, like the Standout program, very thoughtfully, that's going really well. What have I avoided? I hired a business coach last year in September, and I've really been avoiding doing the work. I've been working in the business, but been reluctant to work on the business. That's the stuff that I know I shouldn't be avoiding, but I'm avoiding. And I want you to think about what's the thing that you're avoiding that you shouldn't be. Because a lot of us, we know deep down we could be further along if we would stop avoiding certain things. My answer to what am I no longer available for is I'm no longer available for free work. I have been on a journey as a business owner to ask for what I'm worth and to walk away from things that don't pay me at the level that will enable me to serve with excellence. And I think I've been really clear-minded this year with clients that I would ordinarily feign over to serve, that it's that season and that ship has passed. So I give you my answers with hopes that it helps you think closely about how you should answer. And for me, I'd love for you to keep track of this and be able to look at this, be able to, really assess truthfully where you're at. Some of us, we're avoiding certain conversations. And a lot of what we need and want in life is on the other side of some difficult conversations. Maybe a difficult conversation with a spouse or an employer, a difficult conversation with someone who's stepping over a boundary, and that's making us feel less of ourselves and demotivated to do what we're meant to do. So this is our first reflection. I don't know if anyone wants to share in the chat box. You're welcome to do so. But if you want to keep this private, I hope you and your journal um, will be truthful to each other as you document your answers to this. So the goal is we want to first find where we're at before we determine where we're trying to go. Because oftentimes we have, I don't know about you, but every December 31st, my church has a crossover all night service. We write stuff on pieces of paper, we put it on the altar, what we're believing God for, etc. I don't know. Can I see by hand if your church does that too? And then there's this excitement, there's this expectancy. And then by January 5th, I don't even remember what I wrote on that piece of paper. I don't even remember what it is I was trusting God for. I'm not keeping track of nothing. I'm just kind of back to my old ways. I don't know if I've got witnesses in here. And that's why I like to encourage people to journal, like have a book, have something that you can go back to. And I know we live in a very digital age, but I find it very distracting, to sometimes try to keep track on the devices. So that's why I've just gone back to physical paper and pen, because again, I can look at it with minimal distraction. All right. This is our next set of questions. And my point with this one is you will never outperform your self-respect. A lot of us do not practice integrity with ourselves. We we can't take ourselves seriously because we say things that we never do, and we have a track record of just disrespecting the goals, the ambitions, and the things that we said we would do. So my next reflection question for you: how are you treating yourself this season? This past 6 months, have you been treating yourself well? Yes or no? Are you treating yourself well? Yes or no? Are you procrastinating, being too much of a perfectionist, playing small? A few weeks ago, I was telling my coaching circle, the Elevate group, I was sharing with them that I feel like I'm treating myself reasonably well, but I realize that I've slipped into some old habits like late night eating and snacking. I lost a dear and near friend. And I think the grief of that sent me into a spiral emotionally. And some of the habits of emotional eating and the emotions of just, that season just reactivated certain misbehaviors. So I had to acknowledge that I'm not treating myself as well as I was um, earlier in the year. So for you, I'd love for you to be true to yourself. Write it down. Are you treating yourself well? I've been super busy with work. I've had client work that had me traveling all over Ghana. I had my Standout Women's Leadership Program. I had other corporate training work that I've been doing the past 2 months. And so I've not been consistent with exercise as I used to be. So that's another thing that I noted down as a thing to work on. So the goal of this is not condemnation. The goal of this is honesty so that you can see where you're slipping before it gets to the gap of performance gets too wide. So, for example, at my retreat, I brought my jump rope with me so that in the wee hours of the morning, I can skip rope before I go into the sessions because I did my checkpoint. I asked myself these questions. I acknowledged where I was failing a bit or had slipped into old behaviors so that I could do something differently, right? So, how are you treating yourself? Are you creating space and margin in your life for rest and recovery? Are you being more lazy than productive? Are you procrastinating? For me in my life, I used to tell people that I used to be the president of the Overthinkers Club International. I don't know about you, but I could overthink things. I have an idea. I won't take any action on it. What if this? What if that? What if, like, how are you treating yourself? Is your general talk to yourself negative? Is it positive? Do you respect yourself enough to care for your body? Are you doing the things that you said you would do? That's what this reflection's asking of you. If you'd like to share in the chat box, please go ahead. Uh, but again, your journal and your pen is enough. A lot of us pay a lot of attention to what we're doing, but as I get older, waking up to the reality that it's more important what you are being, who you are being. And when you take actions in in light of who you are aspiring to be, it makes a big difference. So I like to encourage the people that I mentor or coach to commit each day 20 minutes to doing a thing that they've been avoiding. So you remember in our previous slide, I asked you, what is the thing you've been avoiding? That's the thing I want you to commit to doing 20 minutes every day of. So for me, it's 20 minutes of exercise, making sure at least I'm getting my 20 minutes back in, 20 minutes of a workout. I have the workout videos that I love. I've got my skipping rope. I've got the things that I've got my weights here in my home office, my dumbbells, just because I realize the things that I've been avoiding, the things that I've been slipping on can be resolved by some deliberate actions. And for you, that may be, every day starting your day with a motivational, inspirational video or message to recondition your mind to think positively. I see someone here has put in the chat that procrastination and overworking. So for you, maybe every day you have to put an alarm to check in with yourself and switch off your phone to airplane mode for an hour. I started doing that when I was a workaholic and overworking. I committed to every day switching into airplane mode for 1 hour so that I could breathe, so that I could walk, so that I could nap, so I could call a friend that I haven't heard from for a while, do things that socially would enrich me because I had become so falsely balanced. Just all work, no leisure, no play, no release. So the gap between where you are now and where you want to be is really some brave actions. But you've got to take those actions as a person who sees a different picture of what's possible. So in my executive coaching journey, my executive coach said something to me. She said, "Yeah, what you have to be the person that you imagine yourself to be. You have to be that person now. Like, what would that person do having seen these gaps?" So, for example, I envisage that the rest of my life will be the best of my life, that I'll be in fantastic health. I'll be at the top of my game professionally and personally. I'll have a marriage that is thriving, a home life. I put it this way: I want to be famous at home. That as I win in my corporate career or in my business, I still want to be famous at home. And so my executive coach was inviting me to think, like, what would that person do if she saw these gaps? What would that version of Yawa do with these gaps? Well, that version would schedule time for herself. That version would exercise. The version of me that is healthy and whole and profitable and financially sound and loved by her children and adored by her husband, that version of me would make some different choices. So, for example, that version of me that wants a good marriage is carving out time for her husband, is waking up and trying to get, FaceTime with him before we both go about our various days. And I see that taking action from that frame makes a world of difference. So again, I just want to reiterate, what is one brave, imperfect action you can commit to? For me, it's 20 minutes of exercise. That if nothing at all, I'll jump up and down with my skipping rope or with no rope at all before I hop in the shower at the end of the day, right? To reclaim shifts in nutrition. That's one thing I could commit to. Maybe for you, it's culling your closet. That's one thing that I've been doing recently. Just, I have all of these things that I say one day I'll wear again, but I'm never wearing it again. And I'm living in it's a beautiful bedroom, but it's cluttered. And I'm thinking, like, I want a space that is inspiring, not cluttered. So it means I set my alarm for 20 minutes, and what can I move around in 20 minutes? What can I get rid of in 20 minutes? So this past week, I've gotten rid of old shoes that I don't wear anymore, gotten rid of a few outfits, packaged them away. These are the people I'm giving them to, or this is where I'm tossing it to, right? So each of us needs to think, what is the thing that I can do in a non-overwhelming way? That's why I'm saying 20 minutes. Everyone can find 20 minutes every day because I know what it's like to just start watching one video and then before you know it, you've been there for an hour watching videos. You can lose an hour very easily on social media. So 20 minutes of brave action is what I'm inspiring you to do. Look at all the questions that you've answered. You see where your gaps are. Is there something that you can do daily for just 20 minutes to start helping you redeem the time? So, for example, on my business, I've hired this business coach, paid the money, but I've not been showing up to do the things he's asked me to do. So I'm saying every day for 20 minutes, I'm going to go back over the notes, go back over some of the videos, and take action, right? So each of us, my question to you is, what is that one brave, imperfect action that you can commit to? Please journal that. The goal of this is your elevation. That's why I started this private coaching and mentoring circle, because so many people were saying, yeah, well, I want you to be my mentor. I want you to be my coach. And I couldn't have the means, the bandwidth, the number of hours a day to put them, to say yes to all of them. So that's why I created the Elevate community. And for me, I wanted to share this definition of elevate, which I got from the dictionary: raise or lift something to a higher position, or to raise to a more important level. All of us have probably been in an elevator at one point in our lives. And the goal of an elevator is to take you to new levels, right? And the thing about the elevator is that the floor of the floor you're on becomes the ceiling. The ceiling becomes the floor of the next stage. And so the definition of elevate that I love the most comes from Bishop T.D. Jakes, who said it's when your ceiling becomes your floor. And this has resonated so much with me because I realize that so many of us are in seasons of our lives that we're just living the same life, the same day over and over until a year passes. And elevation requires a break in the usual, a break in the routine, new decisions, new conversations, courageous conversations. Pattern disrupts to move to the next level. So to elevate means what used to be a ceiling over your head has now become the floor under your feet. I know what that's like. This picture on the left is me when I was 6 years old. My family grew up in the US and we were the immigrant family that everyone used to laugh at. I remember telling my mother that I wanted her to change my name because one, people were struggling to pronounce it. And then secondly, it just made me stick out from everybody. I wanted to fit in so badly. So I told her I want her to change my name and call me Amanda Johnson, just so that I would have a name that sounded American like all of my peers in school. And this woman on the right, this was from a few years ago when I had the great honor of meeting President Barack Obama. Posed for this photo outside of the White House because I wanted to remember where I came from and where God had brought me. You see, there's who's teasing me in the chat box, calling me Amanda Johnson. This shift that I'm talking about, the elevation where your ceiling becomes your floor, is possible. I've become a different, bigger, bolder, better version of me because of some of these shifts that I'm inviting you to consider. So I want to offer you some strategies that will enable you to elevate. These reflections are to help you figure where you are and what choices you need to start making to move to your next level. But let's look at a few strategies to help you. Strategy number one, you've got to create compelling vision. The scriptures teach us that without vision, people perish. You've got to have your eyes set on something. And I don't know about you, but I've been so disappointed before that I stopped dreaming, stopped hoping, stopped having any expectation that things will change. And maybe that's what's happened to you. Maybe a certain outcome that you had wanted, a certain promotion or a certain job, it fell through, it didn't happen the way you thought it would, and you're kind of afraid to dream again or afraid to hope again. And I know the world tells us that hope is not a strategy, but the Bible says these three things remain, abide: love, faith, and hope. And so I don't mean to mess with your theology, but hope is part of your strategy for success. Because without hope, you won't try. Without hope, you won't even take the inspiration to set a bold vision before you. So, strategy number one, create compelling vision. We're stuck and confused about our future. A lot of us are perishing because we don't write our vision. We don't make it plain. If I asked you right now, do you have a clear vision for 2025? What would you say? Let me know in the chat box. Do you have a vision for 2025? In October last year, I sat and started to wait on the Lord in prayer about 2025. What is this year? What do you want me to focus on? How do you want me to show up? And I began to write down what I felt he was leading me to focus on, right? And not all of those things have materialized, but having something to focus on has kept me motivated and kept me moving in the direction of what I felt God is calling me to. But having a vision is so critical. Vague vision produces vague results. So instead of saying things like what I used to say in years past, I want to make money, pa, ask, be clear, what is the amount of money? So for example, in my consulting business, I set a goal when I joined my business coach that I want to make $1 million in revenue in the next 24 months, right? So clear goal, clear amount in dollars, and clear metric to measure whether I got there. And that 24 months started in September 2024. So that means by September 2026, I want to be able to tick that metric. But I have to take that big goal and break it down into smaller outcomes, quarterly goals, monthly goals, and actions. So I share this because I love to vision board. And I've found vision boards to be super helpful. So, for example, I have my vision board here because I wanted to show you on this call. Like, I'm not telling you to do things that I'm not doing myself, where I have pictures of certain things that I'm focusing on. So, for example, you'll see here this big picture says master classes on career ownership because I felt like I needed to do more virtual learning programs for companies and organizations. In fact, most of my executive coaching clients I serve virtually. And so it's a picture of me in the middle and a community of women around me. That's the picture that keeps me focused on the goal of what I'm building in my business, right? In my consulting practice. So a vision board is really helpful because we speak in words, but we think in pictures, right? So when I say elephant, you're not seeing the letters ELEPHANT. You're actually seeing a visual. If you've seen an elephant before in person, that's probably what your mind has brought up to you. If you've seen it in movies or in TV, you're recalling an image. You're not looking at words. And that's why I really want to encourage you. Think about the next 6 months. Can you pull together a vision in pictures to keep you accountable? One of the women in our standout retreat showed me her vision board. It's her screensaver on her phone, which is very powerful. For a long time, my screensaver was my vision statement about my business and the revenue target that I'm holding myself to. So, a vision for our future is critical. That's strategy number one. If you want to elevate, you've got to create compelling vision. You've got to take responsibility, let it be inspired by God, but don't over spiritualize. I know what that's like because I used to sit here, believing that God will bring the clients to me to knock on my door and I would serve them. I didn't take it seriously that I needed to be out there. I needed to be talking about what I'm doing because I over spiritualized, right? Maybe you're over spiritualizing too. Everything is a demonic attack. Everything is someone in your village is working on you. But may I suggest that maybe you're not under attack? Maybe you're just underdeveloped. And you've got to develop a new skill set to be able to become the person who can fulfill the vision that's on your heart. So I believe that when you have clarity of vision, it'll become clear to you who you need. Because personally, I do not believe you can be your best self by yourself. Each of us needs mentors and counselors and coaches, and I've been investing heavily in all of the above over the past few years because I've seen the 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 impact that it's made in my life. It's brought me to new levels quicker. They say if you want to go fast, you go by yourself. But if you want to go far, you go together. And I believe it's possible to go both fast and far if you rally around the right coaches, the mentors, and guides to help you. So I really want you to take responsibility and execute because a vision is creating a compelling vision is one of the key metrics that helps you elevate. The second strategy is executing with excellence. A lot of us struggle to just get things done. Oh, Chale, I've been thinking about this for a long time. Oh, one day, one day. Or we say in Ghana, Famanyami, give it to God, as an excuse for our procrastination or laziness, etc. Strategy number two, if you're ready to elevate, you want the rest of this year to be better than the first half, start executing with excellence. Part of what I believe we're called to do, especially those of us who are believing women or believers, is to do our work better than everybody else. I love the scripture in the book of Daniel that talks about Daniel, that he did his work so much better than the other governors and officials that the king decided to let him govern the whole kingdom. The book of Proverbs teaches that diligent hands will rule, that if your hands are diligent, you will bear rule. And some of us are struggling with the excellence factor because there's some noise that has kind of shrouded and clouded our ability to be effective. And some of the things that I wanted to call out, gossip and politics and, being ignorant of what our assignment is. I really believe that our work is worship, that part of how we glorify God is in how we serve. So, for example, before tonight's call, I was just talking to God about everyone who signed up for this call. I said, God, you gave me this nudge this morning. I put it out there, and these people have signed up. They're not here to see me, they're here to see you, Lord. So, Father, just impress upon me what I need to share. I was praying while I was putting these slides together because I want to do my work excellently, which means my work needs to touch you where you need to be touched the most. There needs to be a difference between how I produce and others produce. And sometimes we get frustrated by the noise that we don't focus on what the assignment is. So I believe that my assignment here tonight is to encourage, to provoke, to inspire, to motivate, and to call up higher those of us who are ready for 2025 to end on a strong note, right? So there's noises that get in the way. And what I want to call out is sometimes we're not giving our best. We're not putting our best foot forward. We're not committing our way to the Lord. The Bible says, commit your way to him and he will make it come to pass, right? Acknowledge him in all your ways and he will bring direction to your path. So for those of us who just are suffering from a lack of clarity, I would encourage you to commit your way to the Lord, as the Bible says. Yeah. And the reality is that, look, we can all come up with excuses about why we're not doing what God has laid on our heart to do. I've blamed kids, I've blamed spouse, I've blamed all of the commitments that I've made. And the reality check is if you want to feel better, it feels really good to blame other people. It feels really good to say, it's not my fault, or it's the economy. It's not my fault, or it's these people who didn't help me, who didn't sponsor me, who didn't do this. But if you want to be better, just blame yourself that, yeah, well, you didn't do this, but you'll figure it out. You will find a way or make one. Sometimes I stand in my mirror and give myself a pep talk that, all right, this didn't happen the way it should, that, yeah, well, you are not being on point as you were before. It's time to go back to these old habits and reclaim the vitality that you fought so hard to claim. The reality is, it feels good to blame other people. It wasn't me. It was the client. It wasn't me. It was this. It was that. And I really want you to take that charge and remember that it requires diligence for us to show up with excellence. And diligence is really you committing to doing what you said you would do with excellence, even when the mood in which you committed to do it has passed. Have you ever made a commitment that you regret making? At the time, you're like, oh, yeah, yeah, I'll take care of that. I'll do this. But when the rubber meets the road and it's time to make good, the Bible says a good man will swear to his own detriment. That's what diligent people do. That, I may not no longer feel like doing this, may no longer feel like eating vegetables, may no longer feel like exercising, may no longer feel like, running the business, but you keep at it because it is diligent hands that eventually rule. So each of us who's believing God for greatness needs to understand that we've got to be diligent. You can't be excellent without diligence. As much as strategy number two is speaking to the fact that we must do our work well and perform excellently, I do want to raise awareness that rest is as important as our work. I am someone who broke this rule for most of the years of my life. I've been working since I was 19 years old, just from a place of never wanting to have lack or struggle. And I would work through weekends and I would get on a plane and every few weeks be gone. I back to back meetings, schedule always filled. And I suffered in 2022 from what they call adrenal fatigue. I mean, I couldn't barely get out of bed for 2 months. I just was lethargic and slow. I was overweight. I was struggling with diabetes, hypertension. I was not in a good place because I disregarded the the commandment that God gave us to rest. So I love to warn people who have workaholic tendencies like I do that rest was not a suggestion, it was a command. That even God Almighty, after 6 days of creating, he took a day off. So I really want to magnify the fact that being overwhelmed and overscheduled is never God's best for us. And I like to use this strategy. I call it my 3Ds. I wrote about it in my first book for those who've read it. And it's delete, defer, or delegate. All of the things that you're committed to, write this down in your journal. What do I need to delete? Stop doing altogether. What do I need to defer? Maybe I want to do it, it's important, but I don't have the bandwidth to do it now. And what is it that I need to delegate? A lot of us have perfectionist tendencies and don't like to delegate anything because we want to do it all, or people don't do it as well as we would like them to do. But that's partly why a lot of us are burnt out and just not where we need to be with our health. And as someone who has made that mistake and has recovered by God's grace, I just really want to raise the flag that doing your work so much better than others and getting things done with excellence is not a call to workaholism. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's to streamline your life so well that what you focus on doesn't deplete you. So for those who know me, they know that I've really been on a deletion and a deferring and a delegation mode over the past year. I've stepped off a board. I've just let go of certain streams of business that I used to do so that I could focus. Like, what do I need to give 100 of my attention to instead of trying to be here, trying to be there, trying to be all over the place? And some of you, that's the call that God's giving you. That, I didn't call you to all of this. All of the overwhelm that you're feeling, it's your fault. Can we take responsibility for that and start deferring and deleting and delegating? I sure hope you will. And strategy number 3, polish your professionalism. A lot of us aren't exactly climbing to the highest height because we haven't invested in understanding how to be a more polished professional. And sometimes when I talk about this, people misunderstand and think I'm trying to get you to be, you know, I don't know if you remember this old British show that used to show on Ghana television, Keeping Up Appearances. And there's this, blue collar woman and her husband who were trying to act bougie, right? And it was just so ridiculous, their shenanigans, right? I'm not in saying polish your professionalism, inviting you to pretend to be someone you're not, but I am saying that the international and global world of business responds to certain cues in behavior, in etiquette, and protocol. So I have been greatly helped in my own career and in my progress by really, really focusing early on in my career on gaining etiquette training, business protocol, and etiquette intelligence, because it really positions me to distinguish myself from the competition. It fosters business and good cordial relationships. It helps me to project authority and project confidence. And all of these things work together to give people, a good impression of me. And I studied at the Protocol School of Washington in 2013 to get certified in teaching this because I could see not just the difference it was making in my own life, but also in the lives of those that I was coaching and training with it. So this is the third strategy that I want to invite you to. It's things like understanding what to do when you've got a fancy meal. A lot of businesses, business books on HR tell you that you can learn everything you need to learn about a person by watching how they eat. So if you were invited to an interview over this meal, would you succeed? Would you know how to handle yourself with excellence? These are questions that I want you to think about. Do you understand the proper table etiquettes, for example? Do you understand business card protocol, that there's a way to give and receive a business card? Do you understand executive presence, how to enter a room and project confidence and authority, but at the same time not be perceived as arrogant or rude? All of these things are critical, and I really, really want to encourage you to just lean into this body of knowledge as well. All of this is to give you a reset. What is it you want the rest of this year? Because sometimes you've gone through things that have broken you, things that have disappointed you, but sometimes it's in those moments that you get greater clarity. So, the final reflections before we end tonight's session: what do you need to shift? We now know where we are. We've received these 3 strategies for elevation. What do you need to shift? What do you need to delete, defer, delegate? What might you need to start doing more of? What have you been tolerating that perhaps no longer fits who you are becoming? And what is it that you need to do to make sure that the end of this year will be the best? There's this question that one of my coaches asked me, where she said, what would need to happen for you to say on December 31st that this was the best year of my life? What would need to happen? What would need to happen for you to say on December 31st that this year was the best year of your life? All of us have these 3 currencies. We've got knowledge, we've got time, and we've got money. You can use your money to get more knowledge and buy some time. You can use time to get knowledge and make money. Or you can use knowledge to make more time and money. Which of these tools will you leverage? I always say you've got to learn how to pay for help. Paying for help helps you cut down the time that it takes to learn something. Paying for coaching, for example, has helped me navigate very complex work situations. Paying for counseling support has helped me deal with traumatic situations that have occurred in my life. But I've had to get real that I need to use some of the currencies that I have to get the other things that I need in life. And I share this because I really want you to have this vision reset. What will need to happen for you to say that this year was the best year of your life? What shifts will you need to make? And what have you been tolerating that no longer fits who you are or who you're meant to become? So, our final exercise for your journal: who do I need to become to fulfill the second half of my year? My answer was simple. I need to stop doing what is convenient and start doing what's required. What is required for me to be at my ideal weight? What is required for me to hit my revenue targets? Right? It's required of me to take more business development meetings. It's requiring me to do more of the work that my business coach is asking me. What will I need to become? Who will I need to become? One thing that I was talking to my coach about recently is I need to become unbothered. I still have the voice in my head saying, if I do this, then they will say, if I do this, then this, I'm overthinking based on what other people's responses will be. And that's short-circuiting my motivations to do? What mindset or practice do you need to let go of? I've had to let go of if I say no, they won't like me. I've had to let go of the needing to be liked instead of needing to fulfill the assignment that God has for me. And the final reflection, what do you want to celebrate in December 2025? Put your eyes on something tangible. What is it you want to celebrate? What is it you want to celebrate? Is it a dollar amount in your bank account, in savings or in investments? Is it the keys to your brand new house? Right? What is it you want to celebrate? Fix your eyes on something. My goal in this session is to just remind you that you weren't born to be average. Between now and December, do what's required, not just what's convenient, not the bare minimum. Some of you may need to change friend groups, change your circles. If you're the only oga in your group, the one everyone is praising, you're in the wrong group, my friend. You need to get around people that make you strive to be better, strive to become more, do more, expand. I like being around people who say, yeah, well, that was nice, but have you considered? Have you considered doing this? Have you considered doing that? See, you are the secret weapon to unlocking all of the things that are in front of you as a desire and an ambition. You are the strategy. So a better you will result in these things. That means you've got to start doing I like the way my co-facilitator at the Standout Retreat, she says, we're not doing hard work. We're doing heart work. What shifts do you have to make in how you perceive yourself so that you can become and lay hold of all of these things that you will celebrate come December 2025? So that's my closing charge to you. I hope these reflections have been meaningful, helpful. I hope that, it's provoked you in a way. You know, I just want to speak over you that you are not who you were in January. You're becoming a wiser, bolder, braver version of yourself. And I pray that God will help you to release the fears and rise up in truth and show up for your next level with both grace and grit. Grit is like, oh, you got to push through no matter how bad it feels. Grit is doing the planks and the squats, no matter how sore your body feels. Grit is keep showing up to learn, to get that qualification. So that's my closing prayer to each of you, that whatever provoked you to join me tonight, whatever provoked you to come do this checkpoint with me, whatever inspired you to say, hey, I want to come listen to what she's got to say, I pray that God will honor that desire and give you the ability to follow through and practice integrity with yourself. That all of the things that you and I have written in our journals, in our notebooks, won't just be a thing that we did one night. It'll be a thing that's a turning point. So help us, God. All right, so here ends my checkpoint session for tonight. I'm going to allow you to unmute if you would like to use the raise hand function. I'd love to hear, was this meaningful? Was this helpful? What stood out for you? Which question did you need to hear? What insight did you need to have tonight? I'd love to hear from you. And I'm also going to open up the chat box and just read. I did see some messages pop up, especially the Amanda Johnson comment. All right. All right. Some of you are putting your goals here. I lack motivation these days, just getting by. I know it's not the best, but the zeal to snap out of it just isn't there. All right, my sister, I join faith with you. I know that feeling, but I believe that a lot of us are a function of the environments we hang around. You need to get around a new environment. And that's why I like that I belong to a business coaching circle. It's not just my business coach, but there are other people. So that when I'm a little demoralized or a little stretched, I can reach out and be encouraged that, look, wow, we're all here. We're here for each other. So I really want to encourage you to think about your environment. Who is in your environment, or what environments do you have to intentionally put yourself in to restore your motivation? Yeah. All right. I'm more intentional and focused on self-growth. Congratulations, Lassie. I like that. Procrastination and feeling overwhelmed, something you're dealing with as well. Okay. I can empathize with that, Nanasika. Lily says a bit of my French class, 15 minutes a day. Exactly. Yeah, I do. I use the app Duolingo to learn French. So I've probably been doing that for nearly 2 years now. So just a few minutes a day to improve your conversational abilities, a little bit a day. So back to that slide, about 20 minutes a day is more than, 20 hours. Just every day, what is one imperfect but dedicated action that I can take to help me move towards the direction of my goals? Right? Awesome. Nanasika says this year I started a 45-minute walk after work and I realized I actually enjoy it. Awesome. Helps you get fresh air, enjoy nature. Awesome. I love that. I love it. I love it. All right. Comfort, I see you've unmuted. Did you want to share?
No,
Okay.
please. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Hyacinth Bouquet. Yes, you remember the show I was talking about, the Keeping Up Appearances. It's a ridiculous show of someone who is clearly like, blue collar trying to be bougie. And like I said, when I was talking about polishing your professionalism, that's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to understand, well, how to walk with power. The rich, the famous, the distinguished. How do you abound at the same time abase? I want you to be just as comfortable in distinguished company as you are with those at your current financial level. And it means a lot because oftentimes what keeps us away from the promotion are some of the things that border on etiquette and protocol. People don't trust that if they put us in certain spaces that we won't disgrace them. So I'm so glad to be reading these comments and just seeing
Yeah.
what everyone's saying. All right. I see a few new comments popping up. I think this is really good and I needed it. So many practical takeaways. Awesome. Thank you for the kind words, Ajwa. Esther says, thank you so much for pouring out as always. I need to carve out time to reflect and reset. I'll be using all the nuggets you've shared. God bless you. God bless you too, Esther. So glad you could join us. Lois says it's a great session. Thank you. Thank you. Lots of thank you. Lily says, more than refreshing. I'm blessed joining today. No regrets at all. Awesome. The questions are very useful. Awesome, awesome, awesome. The rest of the year will be great. Amen and amen. Now, I pray for you that the rest of this year will be great. I pray that anything that has been a ceiling over your head will become the floor under your feet. I also pray that any question that provoked thought or discomfort, that you will sit with it, that you'll be unafraid to dig deep into the sources of discomfort and unpack with God, or with yourself or with others, like what's the root of that, so that you can deal with things from their root, not just the symptoms. We'll deal with things from their root. So help you, God. Amen. So again, thank you. Thank you for spending this hour with me. Thank you for letting me all up in your business. Thank you for letting me share what I felt prompted to share. And if I feel inspired to do another session, I'll for sure send you an email to join. For those of you who may be interested in joining my Elevate community, you can, in fact, I'll just email information. I know some of you have asked me for mentoring or coaching. I do have this place that I meet, people twice. It's a group program, and we meet twice a month. And for those who may want one-on-one coaching, we can have a conversation about that as well. So I'll just send information about my upcoming programs. I've got my Polish Professionalism program happening later this month, and all of that. So, if you signed up for this, you're on my mailing list, so we'll keep you posted. But have a good night. God bless you, and may the rest of 2025 be better than you imagine. In Jesus' name. Good night. and bye.